Mayor Mike Duggan and challenger Senator Coleman Young II debate over the future of Detroit. We are in the city at the Detroit Historical Museum, and my week starts right now.
The Business Leaders for Michigan CEO Summit is Thursday, November 9th at the Westin Book Cadillac in Detroit. Hear top-notch speakers such as Andrew Liveris, Brian Walker, and Jim Hackett. They will share ideas to grow economically in an ever-changing marketplace. Experience 5 hours of networking opportunities with 500 top business, community, and policy-making leaders. Learn more at www.businessleadersformichigan.com. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Mayoral cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
Hi there and welcome to My Week. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for joining us. We're at the Detroit Historical Museum this week and talking over the only mayoral debate before the November 7th election. Incumbent Mayor Mike Duggan and challenger Senator Coleman Young II debated on Wednesday night in a joint production between WDIV Local 4, Detroit Public Television, and the Detroit News. This was Young's chance with free TV airtime to take swings at Duggan and make the case to voters that he has better solutions to fighting crime, neighborhood development, and service expansion. Times got a little nasty between the two, but I think gave voters a good sense of what each would bring to the job. We'll take a look at some of the highlights, but first, let's bring in our My Week contributors. Nolan Finley from the Detroit News is here, and Stephen Henderson from the Detroit Free Press. Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
It's always nice to be in the assembly room of the Detroit Historical Museum.
I love this place.
Yeah,
This is one of my favorite exhibits.
It is really cool.
Building the Cadillac.
Once it's up and going,
Yes,
too, exactly.
right.
So we've shut it down just for taping right now. But let's go ahead and I want to get your overall impressions. This is the only debate that we are going to see between Senator Coleman Young II and Mike Duggan. I'm going to start with you, Nolan. Did it deliver everything that you thought it would?
Well, I thought it was a little meatier than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be a circus. For the most part, Coleman Young appeared dignified, professional, and as a candidate who was serious about this race. Now, he said a lot of stuff that wasn't true and was called out for it by the mayor, but that's not often as important in a debate as how you present yourself. And he presented himself fairly well. He looked like he could be a mayor, which is often what your goal is in a debate. I mean, and then he delivered this really despicable, stupid line at the beginning of the end. Join me in taking back the motherland. I mean, that was right out of Donald Trump's playbook. When Donald Trump said, let's take back America, everybody said, well, that's a dog whistle to the racist. What was this then, if not the same thing? It was just awful.
Pretty interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting debate. You know, the trick here for Coleman Young II was to look like Mike Duggan's equal, right? You get 60 minutes on television where the only opportunity for people to see the two of you together, you have to look like you can hold the stage. And I think he probably accomplished that. I agree with Nolan that the motherland comment was bizarre and pretty inappropriate. We can imagine who put him up to that, who's working on the campaign.
He was channeling a couple of Adolfs there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. But you know, that plays to his base. Just like Donald Trump, there are voters in the city who really feel that way and who are attracted to his platform for that. So he had to throw him something. I guess it was the thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had to swing for the fences, and I think he did about as much as he could at that point. But you're talking about playing to the base. Gosh, if you look at the numbers, and I know sometimes we're not too fond of polls anymore after the presidential election and what happened there, but the disparity between 67% and 27% in the primary.
Well, that's not a poll, that's a vote.
I mean, that's the vote. That's the vote, or numbers.
Poll.
But when you look at that, I mean, and you say the base, well, he wasn't just trying to sway 8 or 10% here. He had to make up a lot of ground.
He's got to make up a lot of.
That's the big.
He has to make up an awful lot of ground. He's got to convince either people who voted for the mayor in the primary to come over to his side, or a lot of people, you know, most people didn't vote. He's got to maybe get some of them out. I think it's an incredibly difficult task for anybody. It will be especially difficult for him, given you know, he has a very thin resume of accomplishment. He's been in the legislature for 10 years, but doesn't have a whole lot to show for it. He's young. He doesn't have other experiences. He's never run anything. He doesn't, I mean, this is a guy who didn't even run his own household until earlier this year, I believe, when he moved out from his mother's. He's got a lot to overcome.
Yeah, but Mike Duggan needs to be pressed here. I mean, Mayor Duggan had to stand up next to his challenger and you know, go through this debate. So and defend pretty much what he's done for the last 4 years and say, people, hang on, this is what I'm going to be able to do for you for the next 4 years.
Well, he was on the defensive most of the night, and that's one of the things that Coleman Young II did well. He kept the mayor on his heels a little bit, talking about correcting the record all night long, and that's a great debating technique. If you force your opponent to correct your falsehoods all night long,
then they can't talk about the other things, yeah.
Their agenda and what they want to do. We've seen that over and over again. Saw it again last night. The mayor seemed ticked off. He seemed irritated. He seemed testy. He was not happy at all to be there, and he was not happy to have to answer lie after lie after lie throughout the evening. And you know, you got the feeling that he wished he were back in the mayor's office and not having to deal with this. You know, I don't know why he did the debate. We would have beat the heck out of him.
I was going to say he had to do the debate.
He didn't have to.
He had to do the debate, I think. I
He
think
had-
so, but I think
what's this? You're not going to lose a 2-1 lead by not doing a debate.
well, I think that he had to stand up with his challenger, though, and say, okay, well, this is the person who's running against me. Here's my record, and you know, I think it's worth it to the city of Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, and I've said this before. I do think this mayor has many things to answer for. I mean, he's done some things really well. He has got city services back functioning in a way that we haven't seen in many decades in Detroit. The development that he's helped start or fuel downtown and midtown, that matters. But you know, when you go to neighborhoods in the city and look around and talk to people, and I spend a lot of time in the neighborhood where I was born now, 2 or 3 days a week, it's really hard to look at things and say, well, this is better now because Mike Duggan is mayor, or this has changed over the last 4 years. And I think it's fair to ask those questions. I wish we had a better vessel for those questions in this race than Coleman Young II, who doesn't have a lot of credibility.
All right, go ahead, Nolan, real quick.
The idea that nothing's happening in the neighborhoods is a falsehood. I mean, you have all over the town, you've got initiatives underway that we didn't see, that weren't in place 4 years ago. Redevelopment initiatives, job training.
But there are too many people in the city who are not feeling all of that.
Because the problem was so monumental.
Yes, that's right.
One person, 4 years, is not going to, this is going to take decades. But there is now headed in the right direction and progress.
But can we move faster in the neighborhood?
Well, that's the good question.
Is the question, and has the mayor done enough to move faster?
And the answer to that may be no, but the answer to the other question, could Coleman Young move faster,
that's a different
is an absolute no.
And I think that goes to a larger conversation about relationships, and that's one question that I didn't hear in the debate last night, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, because let's go ahead and take a look at some of the back and forth between Duggan and Young, talking about crime, neighborhoods, transit, and a little sparring between the two. Take a look.
Detroit is a tale of two cities. It's the best of times for those who are privileged, and the worst of times for everybody else. These are the times that try men's souls.
In the last 4 years, we've turned on 65,000 lights, knocked down 13,000 homes, bought 200 buses, cut police and fire response time in half, and put 20,000 Detroiters back to work. I don't need any statistics to know this city is not as safe as it needs to be. What we have done is deploy officers to cut the response time. And the green light now has cut the violent crimes in half in 200 areas that were zones of danger that are now zones of safety. It'll be 400 by next year. We can make this better.
What I want to do is first I want to have a homicide review commission where we review all the homicides and we get all the departments within the city of Detroit, like the health department, to be able to review these homicides. The second thing I want to do is treat violence like a virus so that we can make sure that we go to the center of disease control to make sure that we can be proactive and find out where the root causes of these violent problems are so we can bring them to justice. We also want to expand the police mini stations, and we want to make sure that police officers are walking the beats. He had to pay $30 million to the federal government for violating anti-kickback laws. He admitted on Fox 2 News in front of Charlie Duff on television that he met with 3 contractors, that he had a negotiated price of those contractors. Those 3 contractors got the bids, and then he put the bids out for everybody else a couple days later. If that's not bid rigging, I don't know what is.
You just don't have the slightest bit of shame. It's just unbelievable. I never met with any contractors. I never said any such thing.
You did.
There was never any criminal investigation at DMC. You should stop impugning the employees there. There was a civil self-disclosure as part of the sale transaction. There was never any criminal investigation. You just make this stuff up without any regard to what's true.
What about the neighborhoods? What about the people? You have the unemployment rate of 22% or higher in these neighborhoods. We are the most violent and have the most poverty in this city. Whatever he said he's doing, it's not trickling down to the people. It's not being given out to the neighborhoods. That's what matters. That's where most of the people live.
Now, we're at the hard part. We've got to extend the development in downtown and midtown, spread it all through the neighborhoods. We got to take those folks who feel like they've been left behind in that comeback and make them a part of it. And here's how we're going to do it. The $60 million that we have lined up in the strategic neighborhood funds is about to go into these neighborhoods. It started already in West Village and in the Fitzgerald neighborhoods.
Well, you know, one of the major things that they were going to discuss last night was crime, and bringing up specifically the crime numbers. I thought that Mayor Duggan handled his answer pretty well, saying, look, are the numbers, whatever you want to say the numbers aren't good enough, that they have to get a handle on crime in the city. Nolan, let me start with you. In talking about the different ways to do it, Coleman Young wants to get rid of the police chief, wants to change, wants to have more mini stations in the neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Mayor Duggan saying, look, I don't want people sitting behind the desk. I want them back out on the street, and kind of comparing the different ways that they would go about this.
Well, Coleman Young flat out said this city is not safe, and on that, I think the mayor is very vulnerable. The city isn't safe if you believe the crime stats. Still leading the nation in murder, near the top of the nation in violent crime. This is something that the administration has not been able to bring down. They've addressed response time, they put more people out on the street, but it continues to frustrate them. I don't know if Coleman Young's ideas have merit or not, but I don't think you can dismiss anything out of hand when you're in a city that hasn't been able to reduce that violent crime rate, and it's violent crime that matters most of all.
And are we still talking, though, give us time, we're putting things in place here?
Well, I think I think the mayor's answer is that he believes he has the right police chief in place in James Craig, and that the things that he's doing will eventually pay off. Now that's hard to say to people who live with the violence that exists in Detroit neighborhoods every day. And again, it is the same as this more general question about who is experiencing Detroit's rebirth. If you live in a neighborhood where this crime problem is as vivid as it is, it's hard to say that things are much better. Yes, the police come more quickly, but we haven't gotten to the point where we can dissuade people from doing the crimes in the first place. That has to do with a lot of different factors that the mayor may or may not have leverage over, poverty being the biggest, I think, driver of property crime in particular. Mm-hmm. But I think he's vulnerable. I think he's vulnerable on a lot of these questions. He's not vulnerable to his opponent is the issue. His opponent can't come up with a better answer than, well, you're just not doing a good job. He can't say how he'd do it better.
You know, we all know that the mayor is not responsible for the Detroit Public Schools, but they did talk a little bit about schools last night. Did you want to hear a little bit more? Because when you talk about bringing more people back into the city, and that is something that Mayor Duggan said, judge me on population growth, and while he hasn't had the growth, they've at least slowed the tide of people leaving the city. I maintain that education and the education system here is one of those major issues that's going to impact.
Yeah, of course, you're not going to keep families, let alone draw families back in, as long as the schools are as poorly as they are. The mayor has gotten a little reprieve from that with the hiring of Nikolai Vitti. They've got an excellent school superintendent, or someone who appears to be an excellent school superintendent, in place, and really all the mayor can say now is what he said last night. We're here to give whatever structural support we can to the schools in terms of making sure our buses run okay, making sure our public safety is working, but that's the school guy. And until Nikolai Vitti proves he's not the school guy and not the answer here, I think it would be wrong for the mayor to say much more. You don't want him interfering at this point when you have a guy who's willing and seems capable of solving the problem.
Yeah, the opportunity for the mayor to get deeply or more deeply involved in this has passed because of the deal that we have. I think it was a mistake to let it pass. I've said from the beginning that I think it makes no sense at all that the mayor of the city has no input or no control over schools. I can't think of another major city where that's true, where there's absolutely no relationship between city government and schools, and so much of what the mayor needs to do and wants to do is dependent on education. But that's the way we've done it forever, and Duggan made clear he was not interested in pushing hard to do something different. So he's got to sit back now and hope that Nikolai Vitti is going to deliver on the things that he promises.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about jobs, job training, and I think the way Mayor Duggan framed it last night was looking for opportunity for people, and I think it speaks also to the larger conversation that we're having about the disparity of the haves and the have-nots in the city right now. Nolan, what did you take from both gentlemen last night on that?
Well, I think one of the things that was so interesting to me last night was this reluctance to talk about the great things that are happening downtown. These guys both realize the votes are in the neighborhoods, and yet downtown is part of the city. There should be a stronger sense of ownership by the people in the neighborhoods of downtown, and a bigger celebration of that good thing that's happening, particularly since the development downtown has the potential to create so many jobs that the people in the neighborhoods could fill, and that comes down to job training. We've done a horrible job over the last few decades of training our children for real work, and now all these jobs are suddenly appearing, and we've got a couple dozen licensed electricians in the city, fewer licensed plumbers than that. We need an army of skilled workers coming out of the neighborhoods. I mean, Coleman Young kept talking about only 30% of Detroiters are working on the project. Well, there's reasons for that. And we're getting to the point where if we get so many of these projects going, we're not even going to be able to find these trained workers in Metro Detroit or in Michigan. We're going to have to keep going down to Toledo and other places and bringing in workers. And I think that is a major challenge, but I also think it's one the mayor has recognized and is trying to meet. He mentioned Randolph School, the program out there, and some of the other training programs. They're pushing hard, as is the governor, to get people trained for skilled jobs. I mean, there's $10 billion of investment coming. Man, that's enough to rebuild a middle class in the city.
Man, are we ready for it? And do you agree with Nolan in saying that people don't feel ownership of downtown?
Oh, I think they don't, and they don't feel welcome either. I mean, if you go to neighborhoods and talk to people about what's happening downtown, they're very aware of it. They see it. It's in their faces a lot. They don't feel like it's for them, either from an entertainment standpoint in some cases, like they're not coming down and doing some of the things that we can now do in downtown Detroit, and they don't feel like the jobs that are being created are for them. And they're right. Of the 20,000 or so jobs that we've seen created in downtown or added to downtown, 80% of them are filled by people who don't live in the city. There are, as Nolan says, there's a lot of reasons for that, but if you live in the neighborhoods, what are you supposed to think other than that this is for somebody other than you? It is, it has been. And the failure, I think, of the mayor to sort of pick up that mantle and say, all right, I'm going to make sure that this is for you. Translating the things that go on downtown to the people in the neighborhoods in a really direct way, he's still not really doing that. Now he's saying he's going to do it on two tracks, right? We'll do these things for the neighborhoods, we'll do these things downtown, and they don't have anything to do with each other.
But they need to connect.
But they should
need to
connect,
integrate.
right?
And when you think about what you heard last night, the mayor basically disowning that queue line was not my project,
right.
And you know, Coleman Young saying, well, you've got an office in the Little Caesars Arena and all that stuff, where downtown was a huge negative in the city.
I mean,
But when you tell the story of Detroit, when it's being told nationally, downtown
That's
is
what
people are talking about.
And so you've got to work more, and we've been saying this for years, you've got to concentrate on inclusion, because it's not healthy if there's such resentment of downtown.
Sure.
That's going to eventually affect the progress of rebuilding downtown, and that's not good for anybody.
Something I wanted to bring up that I didn't hear last night, I think I would have liked to hear from both gentlemen, or Senator Young could have helped himself a little bit more, is talking about relationships and how the mayor is having relationships with the business community, business leaders, heads of foundations, where a lot of that money is coming into the city and can affect real change, and how you would deal with those people. And I think hearing about that would have been helpful for people as well.
I thought that could have been a real plus for the mayor, right? To point out that he has these relationships. It's
that
working.
when he makes a phone call, people pick it up.
People pick it up.
And they respond.
And this is not to disparage Coleman Young II too much, but do you really think that the heads of these national foundations, who are now really involved in Detroit, for instance, are going to want to deal with him? I mean, he has no experience dealing with that kind of management and leadership. It would be a gamble. It would be a dice roll that I'm not sure makes a lot of sense.
That's
at this
right.
point.
Or we could have said, I have an inn in Lansing. I can call Lansing and they will help me,
But
get things done.
he works in Lansing now and can't get anything done.
Well, so maybe that wouldn't be.
But I mean, these foundations and these business leaders who are planning their money in Detroit want certainty that the environment is going to be stable and that there's going to be good government, good decision makings, good policy. I can't imagine them sitting down at the table with a race baiter and a guy who is out to divide. They don't want any part of this. And I think our progress in much of the city would dry up overnight if somebody like that was in the mayor's office.
At the same time, the city needs someone in the mayor's office who will not just let those interests have their way with the city, take and not give, which I think we've been guilty of on a couple of fronts. And the mayor should be asked to answer for that thing, for that dynamic. Why have you been okay with some of the deals that have been made that don't really benefit most Detroiters? We didn't get to that stuff last night. Coleman Young has some culpability here too. He votes for some of these tax packages that end up giving away money, then goes out on the street and says, I'm for the people. That doesn't really work either.
They did spar a little bit about that. All right, well, that's going to wrap up the conversation we have about the debate. Just a couple of quick headlines as we move into the weekend. Gosh, Nolan, you can't watch the news without seeing a little bit of turmoil between President Trump and some of his fellow GOP senators.
You have senators now firing back and saying we're going to group together to go after Steve Bannon, who is, pledged to try to unseat all of the incumbents, Republicans who are running for office this fall. How that furthers the Trump agenda, I don't know. I mean, you've got an important tax vote coming up. Why would Bob Corker, why would Jeff Flake, why would John McCain vote for giving the president a victory here when the president has spent all this time trashing him? This thing is coming apart, and you've got 52 votes in the Senate. You need every single one of them just about to get anything done. And if you're making 8 senators really angry and you're making them feel really threatened, why would they vote for your initiatives?
And this is what happens when you have the presidency and the Senate and the House. I mean,
Well,
with one party, it shouldn't have. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, they should be able to roll over Washington.
So think back to 2001 and 2002 when George W. Bush, he was elected under the same circumstances. He had everything, right? And could do what he wanted to do. It was a much more coherent group at work there, a more cohesive group.
They passed his tax plan.
They did what he wanted to. Now, I disagreed with most of what they did, but they were in charge and they were in control and they got stuff done. This is a president who seems just at odds with the whole idea of politics in Washington and the way it's supposed to work, and that was what people liked in him. But when you get there, it doesn't actually work.
Think about what is happening here. You've got Jeff Flake, a traditional conservative, no moderate by any measure. No. Bob Corker, no moderate
These are people
by
I don't agree
any
with.
measure. Being told you aren't suitable for the Republican Party.
Right.
You're not conservative enough, which seems to me simply impossible to think about, that those two aren't conservative enough. These aren't moderates, and you wonder what this party is doing to itself and what message it's sitting. The only thing that's saving them is the Democrats appear too stubborn and stupid to move over a little and make room for all the Republicans who are getting booted out of that party.
Nolan, tell me how you really feel about
I think you'll
that.
start to see more
I
of
doubt that they're
Yeah.
going to the left as hard as they can.
Last 15 seconds. Go
We
ahead.
will see this sort of coming together in the middle. I don't know if it'll be from the Democratic Party. It certainly won't be from the Republican Party, but there's too much commonality now for people to ignore.
Speaking about a little political action, watch this weekend, the Women's Convention coming to Detroit this weekend at Cobo. So that'll be interesting to see what comes out of that as well.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. That is going to do it for My Week this week. Head to myweek.org to check out coverage from the mayoral debate, plus to find all of our One Detroit reports from Detroit Public TV. We are also on Facebook and Twitter at MyWeek. Thanks to our friends here at the Detroit Historical Museum for having us, and thank you for watching. I'm Christy McDonald. We will see you next time. Take care.
No. Roush Enterprises was selected by Google to assemble a test fleet of 100 prototype self-driving cars in 2015. It also produced the new Domino's delivery cars. And speaking of Domino's, Domino's sells well over 2 million pizzas per day around the world, and half of their sales are digital. These are just some of the ways Michigan's pioneers started out as small companies with big ideas.
We are business leaders for Michigan. We are committed to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Mayoral cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.